15 books, including the 150 Healthiest Foods on Earth, Living Low Carb, and The Great Cholesterol Myth, and the creator of the best-selling internet weight loss program, Metabolic Factor. Welcome, Dr. Bowden. How are you today?
I'm just absolutely wonderful, and it's great to be with you, and I'm so excited to be able to talk about all this stuff to your audience, and I'm excited to get started. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so this event, here we are. So this event is titled Both Sides of Immunity, and I'm sure many of our viewers are curious what we know the physical side of immunity. Maybe we think we know it. What are the both sides? And let's dive in and see what we've got today.
Well, it's a tall order, big question. Let's start with the one we think everybody knows about, which is physical immunity. I would kind of push back on that and say most of us don't know as much about that as we think we do. But there are many things that we can do to support the physical immune system. And I'm happy to talk about those. They include food, they include supplements. But the second side, which is I think the one that got your attention, the side that I do not feel people are talking about enough, is how to protect ourselves against the very profound effects that the tension, the worry, the anxiety, and the stress of these times are doing to us. I have friends here in LA who are stocking up on all the nutrients I told them to get. They got their vitamin C, they're popping their alpha lipoic acid and their NAC and all this stuff, and they're watching CNN 24/7. And I want to say to them, guys, you know all that good you're doing in your immune system, popping the vitamin C, which is good, you're erasing it with 24 CNN. And I want, Shannon, for you to understand, this isn't just theoretical. There is an entire science. It's been around, I think, over 20 years. I invite your audience to Google it. It is called psychoneuroimmunology. Let's break that down. Psych is the mind. Neuro is the brain and the neurotransmitters that are released by our feelings and our thoughts. And immunology is, guess what? So this is the study of how our thoughts and feelings affect our immunity. There's 20 years of data and research, published peer-reviewed research on this. And what we think about, what we invest psychic space in, what we give the real estate of the brain to, has a profound effect on immunity. And that is the one I don't think people are talking about enough. That's the second side of immunity. It is equally important to the physical stuff. Now, I'm a nutritionist. I'm a functional nutritionist. I've been in health for 30 years. I believe that everything starts with food. It's just the place that everything begins, just like a car starts with gas. But we can't stop with that. You can't have a strong, optimally functioning immune system if you're constantly under stress and tension. Who gets sick at an office? The people who are stressed out when something's going around, or the people who are kind of calm? So our thoughts matter, and I think that's my take-home message to you today, to anyone who's listening to this, that what you think about and how you manage those thoughts and feelings and how you find your center in the middle of all of this is as important to your body's ability to fight it off as anything else on the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And I've seen it firsthand, those close to me, having some kind of breakdown, even though they're doing all the right physical things, because they're consuming this kind of fear loop that the media is playing.
And let me give you a take home. If anyone turns this off after 5 minutes, I want you to have this take home. Get off Facebook right now. Get off. No good will come of it. I'm watching people literally have their mental health and serenity destroyed. You will follow every internet rumor. None of it will matter. And let me tell you why it doesn't matter. Whether you get tested or not, whether you know you have it or not, whether you pay attention to the rumors and the doubling of the figures and all the stuff that just sounds like clickbait and is so frightening to most, it will not change the advice. If you and I got tested right now and we were both negative, we would both still be told to stay home and wash our hands and not interact. If we were both tested and it was positive, we would both be told to stay home and wash our hands and not interact with people who cough. It's the same advice. It is not going to change. So what I do, here's my prescription. You can follow it if you want. I was a news junkie. I have a car with Sirius XM on. It is on 24/7. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, whatever it is, it's just always on. I'm always listening. I don't put it on at all anymore. 5 minutes a day at 6 p.m., I check in to see if the recommendations have changed. Have they changed? No? Good. That's all I need to know. And I do those. And I can't even begin. I hope I will share with you what that's done for my experience of this crisis. Yeah. Now, obviously, everybody's experience is different. But I believe, and I think many of the people who tune into your stuff believe, that there are opportunities and challenges, even in the most dire of circumstances. I often point out that one of the great books of existential literature, one of the most hopeful books ever written by a psychiatrist named Rollo May, it's called Man's Search for Meaning. It was written in the concentration camps when everybody was dying around him in Auschwitz. So if Rollo May could find meaning in a concentration camp, we can find meaning and purpose in our comfortable homes while we're under quarantine. And that's really what I would like people to know and to be able to do.
So how do we do that? How have you found your meaning, by trimming down some of your other habits and really refocusing, auditing what was working for you, what wasn't energetically, as in regards to your day-to-day routine?
Well, let me do a disclaimer first, because I am very aware that this thing is really affecting people in horrible ways. People have lost their jobs. People are dying. People have relatives who are dying. People are giving babies and they can't be with their mate I get that. So I am very aware that I don't want to appear insensitive or in some kind of a white cloud when I tell you what a great time I'm having during this time. But I also know that if I can have a great time under these circumstances, there is probably an opportunity for someone to have a less bad time. To take these same circumstances. And yeah, maybe I'm aware that people can say, oh, it's easy for him to say, he's got a few months rent in the bank. He works from home. What's the big deal? He's got, I get that. But I mentioned the Rollo May case because I'm a collector of these stories of people who have these horrible circumstances, much worse than what we're going through here, and somehow turn them into miraculous opportunities that not only change their lives, but change the lives of the people around them. I would be happy to share such a story with you. It has nothing to do with the coronavirus epidemic, and it has everything to do with the coronavirus epidemic because it's about finding opportunities in terrible circumstances. And if you like, I'll tell it to you, but we probably all have stories like that.
Yeah. We're all here for stories. I mean,
you like stories?
Well, yeah, let's
I'll tell you. Well, this one's wonderful. So there's an 8-year-old girl. She's not 8 anymore. She's 16. But at 8 years old, she's going to school and she's being bullied, badly bullied by practical jokers. And one of the bullies in her class thinks it would be hysterically funny to pull a chair out as she's about to sit. So he pulls the chair out. She sits. She hits herself in a way, in one of those weird way, like when sometimes you put glass down and it just bursts because it's just the right angle. Well, whatever it was the right angle to cause a major head injury that has been with her for the rest of her life. She's 16 now. The head injury was so traumatic and so bad that she can't use a computer. She can't write. Her mother has to make phone calls. And she's functioning, but she gets constant headaches that she's had to deal with. This 8-year-old kid, 9-year-old, 10-year-old. Imagine dealing with this. You have 3 kids. To make a long story short, she wrote a book about it. And she decided that she was not going to be the victim of this, but that she was going to be the master of it. And she wrote a book about bullying. And it is on Amazon. And I've been in touch with her and I've talked to her. She's 16 now. She is a little motivational speaker who goes around talking about this stuff. She's been written about in newspapers, and she is a sterling example. I'm inspired by this girl, and there are others like that. And that's it. I don't know what how your kid's age is, but you imagine your 8-year-old coming back with a lifelong head injury that is never going to be the same and never going to be functioning, and remembers this horrible incident of bullying, and then turns that around into a message that has uplifted and given hope to so many people in the same circumstances. So that said, we can deal with this. And some of us are going to come out of it the other end even stronger, better, and more enlightened than we were before. And the trick is to find those opportunities.
Yep. And we have the choice. I think we have the choice with the mindset. Maybe we don't have power over our home situation or our work situation or the virus situation, but we have power over our mindset. Are we the victim, or are we coming out empowered?
Always. Yeah. And how we are during this time, how we are with each other, how we are with ourselves, is going to probably color who we are when we come out the other side. And anyone doubting this will be over. This is going to be in the past. We're going to be talking about this one day the way we talk about Y2K2 or the Spanish flu or remember SARS? Boy, that had the country crazy. This will pass. But the resources that we can find in ourselves may be able to stay with us forever. So that's the opportunity.
So I love that. We've now covered kind of the mental defense and how we can arm ourselves, mentally without taking this victim mentality. But nutrition is really your sweet spot. So let's jump into how we can take care of our bodies when many of us are finding ourselves at home. Maybe we're eating out, maybe we're getting takeout more, maybe we're eating out less and we're preparing all our meals. How can we stay on track, or how can we provide our body's optimum physical immunity and nutrition at this time?
Well, let me take a step back before answering that, if I may.
Yeah.
Because while we talked about the fact that there are opportunities in this solitude and in this particular circumstance, we didn't talk about how to find them. So I want to make sure that we do talk about some of the actual practical examples of things that you could do with that.
Yeah, great.
So let's put that on hold and go to the food question. And I want to introduce it by saying this. I was taking a hike before this interview and thinking about how I wanted to frame this. And I realized, because your audience is so attuned to, I'm sorry about the phone. We couldn't find it before the interview, so it's going to be ringing. Can you hear me talk over it?
Yes, we're good.
It'll just be another minute. When people have a big challenge like the one we're facing now, and they have no spiritual practice, or they have no way of centering themselves, this is a hard time to develop it. It's certainly doable. And I guarantee you there are people here listening to this who have found their center. This has been the epiphany that has actually changed it. But as you know, you kind of want that reserve there so you can call on it in times of emergency. And it's the same thing with the physical body. Everybody now is, hey, what do I do to build my immune system? What do I do to fortify my metabolism? Well, guess what? If you were doing that all along, you would be in a very different position now. You would have a stockpile of resources. And I say this not to say, look at you didn't do it, but to look at you, do it now, because this is not the last time this is going to happen. This is a guarantee. I mean, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a PhD in nutrition, but I interact with medical doctors all day long. That's all I know. And every one of them is saying, well, yeah, we'll get through this, but this is going to mutate. There's going to be 10 of them down the road. So this is, if you haven't started building your physical fortitude, this is a great time. If you haven't started, I'm sure everybody in this audience has, but if you haven't started on working on finding your center and the place from which you can be centered in the midst of craziness, this would be a good time to do it. And if you've already built that, this would be a good time to tap into it. I had a mentor once. I won't mention his name because he's still controversial, but he said one of the most brilliant things I'd ever heard, and it was back in the 70s. And he said, the only difference between a master, and by master, you can all put in whatever, guru, a master. The only difference between a master and a non-master is that the master is in control, being out of control. So in other words, if a master and I get into a white water raft, the master can't change the direction of the water or the force of the velocity of the water, but he's going to be sitting in that raft feeling very differently than I am. So we're all in that water right now. And the difference for some of us is that we are centered and we are curious and we are open to what's happening, and we will react to it from that space as often as possible. That's what we're looking for here. And it's the same thing physically. I don't often say this because I know I can be ravished the next day or just savaged on Twitter the next day if I tell you what I'm about to tell you, because if it turns out that I get sick tomorrow, they'll say, see. Yeah. But I'm not afraid of this virus. Now, I'm in the age group that they tell, don't go out of the house, get your hazmat suit, if the Armageddon is coming, you're the one. I'm in that age group. I have not been 1,000% faithful to, I have made certain calculated risks, very educated risk judgments, I believe. But why am I not afraid to get it? The facts are that 98.5% of the people who come in contact with the coronavirus will survive just fine. Many of them will never even know they had it, and many of them will have almost no symptoms if they do know they have it, and some will have not so great symptoms, but they will survive. 98.5%. So I look at these two groups of people, 98.5% of us in this category and 1.5 in the other. And I ask myself, what are the odds and what have I done to increase the odds that I will be in this group? So you can never say with 100% certainty that you've done everything to survive. Let's say you're a driver. You don't text when you drive. You don't drink when you drive. You don't do other things when you drive. You keep your hands on the wheel. You drive soberly. You don't. But you can never prevent some crazy teenager from jumping the divider and crashing into you while they're texting, or from a boulder, as happened here in California a few years ago, falling off the Interstate 101 and falling on a car. Can't prevent that. But you can do everything else to make sure you're going to be in that category. So while I can't say for certain, I know my immune system. I'm not worried about fortifying it. It's been fortified for 30 years. My immune system is functioning on all, and I keep doing that, but I didn't start doing that yesterday. So I know that. I know that I'm basically very healthy. I know that when I do get sick, it's rarely for very long. I fight it off well. And I know the odds are in my favor. So I'm not afraid of it. I'm not suggesting you all put your head in the sand and say, but I'm saying that there is a comfort in knowing that you put your seatbelt on, you'll get your kid in the safe space, you use the car seat, you're not texting, you're doing everything right. And there is a great comfort in that. And that's where I stand on it. So how can people use food and nutrients to fortify their immune system, aside from the very large component of the mental side of this, which we alluded to but haven't completely finished talking about? So the first rule, and it's an interesting rule because it's in 30 years of doing nutrition. I want you guys to know how important this rule is. So I've been doing nutrition for 30 years. I have tried every diet. I've been a vegan. I've been a vegetarian. I was an Atkins spokesman for a long time. I do high fat. I do keto. I've done the whole thing. I've tried it with clients. I've experimented. Same thing with exercise. I've done kickboxing. I've done Radu's workouts. I've done the spectrum of what there is. Here is the most important thing to know about food and diet after 30 years of doing all of it. If we're putting a time capsule, and there was one piece of advice, this would be it. And this is the advice for this time and for building your body during the coronavirus immunity. It's 3 words: eat real food. Now that sounds simple and it sounds like, whoa, that's simplistic. No, it isn't. Because most people don't even know the difference. Well, are these kale chips real food? No. If you have to ask, it's not real food. Here's what's real food. Your great-grandmother comes back to life. You show her the food. Does she know what it is instantly? If she doesn't, and when is this? It ain't real food. Okay? And that experiment was actually done when they did the research for the blue zones, where people have lived the longest on the globe, the most centenarians. And some of these people, they showed them some like Lunchables and things, and they said, what is this? Okay? So the first thing is food that is real. That means food that if you left it outdoors on your porch overnight, it would spoil. Think what will happen to a Twinkie if you left it outdoors overnight, and a second night, and a fourth night, and a year. It'd still be a Twinkie. All right, a steak would not. Brussels sprouts wouldn't. An apple wouldn't. So it's food that would spoil if you left it out. Food your great-grandmother would recognize. Generally, not always. There are some exceptions, but 98% of the time, it doesn't come in a box, doesn't come with a barcode. If you can just do that, that is more important than how much protein you eat, how much carbs you eat, whether you eat dairy, whether you don't eat meat, whether all of those details, real food. Number one. The second piece of advice I have about food in general is that I think most of us do better with a higher fat, moderate protein, lower carb diet. I'm not proselytizing for low carb diets. It's how I eat. Doesn't matter. I deviate from it plenty of times. I'm not arguing for any one specific diet. What I'm telling you is that few people do well on high carb diets. And yes, you can point to different places around the world. The Bantu of South Africa, they eat 80% of their carbs, but none of their carbs even resemble what we eat for carbohydrates. They're not even the same class of food, but they are carbohydrates. So yes, there are exceptions, but most of the carbs in our diet are processed, and it's the processing that makes foods bad. And there's not that many processed meats or processed vegetables. You buy apples, you buy apples. You're not buying 15 different apple food products. So the real food thing is just so important. And when you do eat real food, most of the real food is not processed carbs. It's, there are carbs, there are vegetables and fruits. There's no problem with that. I showed you. I take a bunch of groceries every single day, whatever's in the store. Can you see it? Make it into a juice. This one's green. I have a red one. I have a rosé one, and I just drink them all day long. So yes, no one's saying don't eat those. But the less of the stuff that people are stocking up on because they're in boxes and they're not perishable, that's the worst stuff to really be stocking up on. And, there are ways to not do that and to not eat those kinds of foods. So.
Well, and what if that's the only option, for some people, maybe based on income or location, perhaps they're not able to grow or have access to lots of fresh produce. What are some other maybe middle roads?
There's usually always yogurt is available, and I get the full fat kind, the low fat kind. I don't even get me started on the no fat and low fat kinds. They're not good for us, folks. Egg white omelets are not good for us. Just this little side. But there's always nuts. Even the 7-Eleven has nut snacks. And I saw my cabinet now, you would see an entire thing. Every nut you can mention has its own jar, and that's all I snack on. Cheese, usually available. Eggs, right? I'm a big meat eater. Many people are not. I eat grass-fed meat only. I go once a week to the meat market, and I stock up for me and Cooper, and we have our food for the week.
Cooper's his dog. He was on earlier. He's very cute.
He was on early. He made an earlier appearance.
I'd like to make a suggestion. I've seen this pop up around the country, and I'm utilizing it myself this week. Finally, for the first time, I got online and I found my local CSA, my community supported agriculture, and I'm able to do a drive up into the parking lot and pick up a grocery basket of local produce this weekend for $20. So, there's other resources out there too if you're not comfortable going to a grocery store or picking up produce that maybe someone else, it's been in a store, or you can't. There's options out there. So
there are. Yeah. There's lots of that. And going back to options is a great segue back into the opportunities here. Right. So I'll give you some for me. Now, again, disclaimer. I basically work at home anyway, so this is not as big a disruption for me. I make my own hours. I'm a writer. I appear on TV, which is difficult to do when, during this time. Although I did my first TV appearance in a station I appear on a lot in San Antonio, Texas, and we did it from the house, and the lighting wasn't even as good, and it went pretty well. So clearly we can do that. But I, for example, have been a lifelong reader, and I love reading. It is my hobby. It is how I prepare for my job. So I have to do it for what I do, but I love to do it. And I read in many fields other than my own. And I often don't have time to do it, and I let it go and I forget how much I love it. Not anymore. So I've rediscovered how much I love reading, and I fit that into every single day. And there's a time in my schedule where I put it. I don't always stick to it because emergencies come up, and this interview came up during meditation time, so I move them. But knowing that it is scheduled in makes it much more likely that I will do it. So that's one thing for me. I suspect everybody has different things that they've kind of let go because they didn't have time to do it. My niece loves to crochet. Other people, I mean, there's a million of them. It doesn't matter that mine is reading. Reconnect with that. Yeah. You got a lot of time on your hands now. Ask yourself what you want to do with it. Think of all the things that we have put off in our lives because we didn't have time. Well, guess what? You got the time. Universe just gave you a present. And one of the opportunities here is to discover whether or not you really want to do those things. Right. Because I think a lot of us have aspiring things we want to do, but they're more aspirational. It's like, I really would like to go back to college. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. And there's nothing wrong with that, but let's get clear on it so that you can move on. Maybe you really don't want to clean that closet. You're perfectly fine with it looking the way. You just like complaining about it and saying, well, if I only had the time, I'd do it. Maybe this is the time to do it. Or maybe it's the time to say, you know what? I don't want to clean that closet. I'm okay living with a messy closet. But it's a time to reconnect with like what you really stand for and what you really want to put psychic energy and time into. And some of that may be surprising and disappointing. You may find out, I really don't feel like going to the homeless shelter. I mean, things that we like to believe about ourselves, maybe they're not as accurate. And maybe that requires a little self inventory taking and a little bit of thinking about what our purpose really is and what we really want to. And for many people, they may rediscover, you know what, I haven't done XYZ in all these years, and this is the time, and life is short, people are dying, I'm doing it now. So there's an opportunity for many people that I'm sure there are people doing right now, making those same kinds of statements about their life. So, and just as you can rediscover the things you love, you can discover the people you're stuck with. I've had home visits via Facebook Live with people that I haven't visited with in years. Yeah. And now I'm in their homes and I'm playing with their babies. I'm playing a song for my 1-year-old nephew, and he's delighted and he's singing, and I don't do that during my regular life. We let those things go. So there are real opportunities here to kind of find out what's most important. There's a quote from Barbara Bush, who I didn't really appreciate till after she died. She was a very classy lady, very wonderful woman. And she gave a very famous speech. It was a commencement speech, and I think it was at Wesleyan. It might have been Sarah Lawrence. I don't know, but it was a upstate college. And in her commencement address, she said famously, "None of you on your deathbed will ever, ever regret not making a deal. What you will regret is not spending more time with the people you love." And what she was basically saying was that it's a good time to figure out what's really important. Don't wait for death. And when something like this happens, and it does claim many lives, and many people that we know were, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon away from somebody who had a bad outcome with this, it's a good time to figure out what the hell's important. You don't have to wait for your deathbed. Everybody in their deathbed says, I wish I had known this. Well, here's the time to know that. Right. Take it. And so I do see lots of opportunities in this that
Huh. Well, I think, either way, we come out knowing ourselves better, like you said.
That's the point. Yeah. That's exactly the point. I mean, if you want a laboratory for self-knowledge and awareness, you can't think of better circumstances than this kind of a challenge. How do I behave in a challenge? Do I throw up my hands? Am I a victim? Can I carve out a little place in which I have some agency and some ability to actually direct my experience? As you said, there's always a place where we can do something with how we interpret it. My famous story I used to tell all the time is you can be born blind. You can't do much about that. You were born blind, but you can take that blindness and you can become somebody a beggar who sells pencils on the corner, or you can become Stevie Wonder. That's your choice. Not the blindness is a given, but not what you do with it. And that's pretty much true with just about everything. Not to continue to use myself as an example of like wonderful things, but in my life, I've had challenges that have changed how I had to behave. I'm a competitive tennis player. I have played for 15 years. And a few years ago, terrible shoulder problems. I kept going. They finally said, go to the shoulder doctor, find out what it is. And I found out that I have not moderate, not mild, but severe arthritis of the right shoulder. There is no cartilage there. And they told me pretty much that's the end of your tennis career. Okay. So now I play better than I played then. I play league tennis, USTA 3.0 tennis, and I play 5 or 6 times a week, pain-free. Now, how did I do that?
How did you do that?
Well, those were the cards I was dealt. This is all about playing the cards you're dealt, people. That's the only reason I'm telling you this. It's the same thing with being blind and being Stevie Wonder. That, you know, we were dealt these damn cards that makes us all captive in our own homes. Or no, I prefer to not say captive, but to be able to enjoy our own homes for longer than we normally.
We're on a staycation, a coronacation.
We're on an enforced staycation.
Yep.
And what I did with my arthritis was say, okay, those are the cards I dealt. And I made some changes to my game. Number 1, I only play doubles so that I never have to do a reach with my right hand. Number 2, I changed my serve. I can't do the overhead serve that's classic in tennis, but I developed and learned and taught myself an underhand serve that can keep me in competitive tennis, and I do not have to reach over my head and do that. Number 3, I became a two-handed player. So I have, if you know anything about tennis, most tennis players these days are two-handed backhanders. There are very few. Roger Federer is one that still play single-hand backhand, but everyone's a two-handed backhander. Nobody's a two-handed forehanded player, but I am. And I play very well with two-handed forehand, and that allows me to not even notice my injury because I'm not really forcing it with the right hand. I'm doing it with the left, and the right hand is guiding. So by making a few little adaptations, not only do I enjoy the game that I love so much, but I enjoy it more than I did before, and I play it better than I did by dealing with the cards I was dealt. Not by saying, oh, I have arthritis, I can't play anymore. No. And it's kind of the same thing. Oh, I'm stuck at home. No, not necessarily. So that's kind of, and I'm not saying, again, to pat myself on the back, but to say, God, you know, you can find an opportunity in a lot of things that don't look like they are opportunities waiting to be found. You got to dig a little.
Yeah. Oh, I love that story because you adapted, but you also gained a greater understanding of how you work and how the sport works. I mean, we have this opportunity to how do I work in this situation, and what's really happening here, of greater understanding and adaptability. It's awesome.
100% true. And I think that the life lesson for me was not just I got to play tennis, but I just got over a challenge that most people would just hang up their rackets over. And that changes how I feel about my sense of agency and ability to overcome adversity. And I just don't think I'm that special. I think everybody listening to this can find that on some level, in some place, in some corner of their life. And this is a great time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that story. Thank you for sharing. I'd like to steer back to food just for a minute,
Sure.
Nutrition, if you will.
Yeah.
2 questions, and maybe these can go together. You know, perhaps some of us have not been so good at preparing our immunity for the last several years, 30 years in your case, and we're catching up right now.
That's fine.
So we're feeling like we're catching up, and maybe we're a little anxious about that. Do you have any suggestions for those of us who generally eat real food, but maybe haven't been supplementing or really taking as optimum care of our bodies as we could? And then another question was, what is your juicer? So maybe those will lead in, and maybe they won't. We can treat them however you'd like.
Well, my juice is a huge multivitamin. I mean, you know, for those who, there's nothing, the best nutrients for immunity are found in the food kingdom. They are not always available in the dosages that we need them to make a clinical difference. That's why we recommend supplements so strongly, and especially at a time like this. There are just many things that you just, I'm thinking of one obscure supplement called NAC, which is a stable form of the amino acid cysteine. Can't get it in food. You get a trace, you want 1,000 milligrams of that stuff, and you might get 1 milligram in some obscure food. So there are some that you just can't get. You can get vitamin C, obviously. You know, the basic things, without getting too esoteric, vitamin C is critically important to the functioning of the immune system. It turbocharges a lot of metabolic processes that are involved in mounting a search and destroy mission when it comes to foreign invaders. Okay. And there's, we can get into the technical thing. One of the things is called phagocytosis. It's where they surround the invading cell and they eat it up and all. Doesn't matter. Vitamin C is in there. It's just like, reinforcements for all of that. So we do need to load on vitamin C. One that I'm glad is being mentioned more in popular discussions is vitamin D. Now, we've known for a long time how important it is for bone health. And now we found out in the last few years it's also important that people with low levels of vitamin D, which is about 75% of the country, are more susceptible to MS, to cancer, to depression, to weight gain. So, vitamin D is important for everything. But here's the role in immunity. Vitamin D is like the great balancer for the immune system. You see, your immune system is like Goldilocks. If it's too active, if it's looking for problems everywhere, you wind up with autoimmune disease because your immune system is starting to have friendly fire to things that are not bad for you, including your own tissues. So you get Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease. This system is so careful to shoot anything on sight that it doesn't look right, that it makes a mistake and shoots up the thyroid. Yeah. So you don't want autoimmune disease. On the other hand, if you have a sluggish immune system that's slow to wake up, you're going to get sick. Mm-hmm. So it's very important that the immune system be like the Goldilocks porridge, not too hot, not too cold, just right. That's what vitamin D does. It's kind of like, well, hey guys, you're too active, pull it down. Hey guys, you're a little lazy here, let's pull it up. It is a great balancer. And all the cells in the immune system have vitamin D receptors, which tell us they're meant to be modulated by vitamin D. And if you don't have any vitamin D in your system, could be a problem. So I think those two are a good start. Zinc is very important. I'm going to stick with some that are just wildly available and not very esoteric. You need to up your zinc a little. I am a big fan of, and I mentioned a brand, I'm not associated with them. You get them at CVS, Sambucol. It's elderberry extract. It's this wonderful. Yeah, this is a great thing to have and to, take a sip of every day. It's loaded with antioxidants. Do we know these things work against COVID? No, we don't know anything. We have no studies. We have smart connect the dots. We know elderberry has worked on other viruses. We know that it cuts the number of days we know clinically from studies that it cuts the number of days that you're out with the flu. Makes sense. Might be part of your arsenal in this unknown challenge. And most of what we're suggesting is all connecting the dots. That big controversy over the drug hydroxychloroquine is just about connecting the dots. We don't know if it works or not. And some people are saying, well, it works in some cases, and it looks like it's mostly safe. It's probably worth a try. That's all we can do is it's probably worth a try and make some educated guesses. And the kinds of things I'm telling you about, elderberry, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, educated guesses, they ain't going to harm you. And they're probably going to help you.
They're going to help you because you feel empowered that you're taking care of your body and your health, and that's bringing the mental piece in where, it's that placebo effect where, well, is it working or is it the mental power behind it? I think in this case, it kind of has both.
That's brilliant. And I think it's very, very important to point that out. The placebo effect gets all this bad press, like, oh, it's just, no. Let me tell you about the placebo effect, which has been studied
so powerful.
A lot. It's really the power of your thoughts. And it doesn't mean these things don't do anything, because they do. But you're absolutely right. And here's even a better example of that. I heard a very smart doctor on TV talking about the masks. Now, the masks really don't protect you. They don't. They protect the person next to you. So why are they telling us to wear the masks? I mean, obviously you want to protect the person next to you, but if you don't have the virus, there's nothing to protect them from. So what this doctor said was one of the smartest things I've heard. The masks are a symbol. They are a constant reminder that we're in a serious situation and we need to be careful. It doesn't matter that they don't really work 90% of the time, because, what they do is they are a constant reminder that I am taking action. I think one of the things about vitamins, and I absolutely believe supplements have a purpose and that they work, but what you just said is something that I don't think people think about, which is the very act of getting together a supplement program and taking it every day is a reminder to yourself that you're doing self-care. It's an act that you did. When I was a personal trainer, started my career as a personal trainer in 1990 at Equinox. And the big controversy was, should we work out in the morning or at night? Maybe you've heard that. I mean, trainers, they debate it. They'd argue about it in the magazines. Morning workout versus here was the reason why morning workouts were better. It had nothing to do with the physiology. It had to do with sending a message to your brain. You start the day with self-care. You start the day with an action that will forward your health. That sets the tone for everything else. So whether you believe vitamins work or not, I happen to believe they work very well. You are 100% right that the mere act of taking them makes people feel better and makes them feel that I'm on a path where I want to nurture and nourish myself. And that is likely to make you make more decisions like that as the course of the day goes on. Hey, I just did all this stuff for my health. I'm not going to go out now and smoke a cigarette. I just did this. It's more for what the message is to your subconscious. And I think it's a very important part of taking supplements. You're right.
I agree so much. Yeah. So thank you. Would you like to share about your immunity challenge and perhaps invite our viewers?
Thank you for reminding me. Huh? I thank you for reminding me. You're such a great interviewer. I completely forgot I wanted to tell people about
this. Thank you. You're welcome. So I know we've been having a great time, but yes, please invite our viewers here.
Really good stuff. This is good stuff for everyone. It makes all of us doing it feel good because I should say, first of all, it's free. What I'm about to tell you is 100% free. They are using it to raise funds to a GoFundMe campaign to provide equipment and masks and all the stuff that doctors are running out. They've already raised $100,000, and that's great, but the challenge is free. And what it is 30 days of our staff at Metabolic Living. Dr. Jade Teeter, one of the greatest exercise people in the country, a naturopathic physician. He's a bodybuilder. He's a poet. He's one of my dearest friends. He is filming 30 workouts so that one a day, a new workout, 15-minute workout, will go to the inbox. I am writing 30 pieces of content on every aspect of immunity, from the supplements we're talking about, the 6 or 7 supplements, to the mind-body issue, to things that you can do to calm and center yourself. All of these things, content a day. And our chief nutritionist is doing videos from her kitchen on food preparation, choices of foods that support immunity. And you get these 3 things every day for 30 days, and it's free, and you sign up for it. Really smart thing to do, because there's also community in a Facebook group, and I've been a believer in that since I started 30 years ago, that group support and accountability is one of the biggest things you can possibly do when you're trying to transform your life, whether it be fitness, recovery from alcoholism, whatever it is, you need that group and support. So the way to sign up for this free immunity challenge is to go to metabolicliving.com. You'll see the whole thing, 30-day immunity challenge, sign up for it. That's all you got to do, and you'll get this stuff in your email box every day. metabolicliving.com.
Thank you. And the workouts can be done at home, I'm assuming.
They're all home workouts that Jade is designing in his home in Santa Monica that you can do in your home wherever you live. That's what he does.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bowden. I really enjoyed our time together. And if there's
was it over already? Jesus, that was
yeah, I think we're about wrapped up. Unless there's anything else you'd like to share. We've had some great comments about supplements, real food, working out. Really good. So any parting thoughts?
You know, we're hearing so much. I'm getting so many questions about the quarantine 15. This does not have to be that time. It does not have to. It is not inevitable. I was sharing with you off the air that I'm a weight loss coach. It's what I started out doing. And so I know something about losing weight, and I have struggled with weight my entire life. I keep it at where you go, oh, you have nothing to worry about. Yeah, it's very hard for me to keep my weight where I want it. Since this thing happened, I've actually been under my perfect weight, and it has been effortless to maintain, because I just don't go out to the grocery store and get stuff. So I'm stuck with meat and nuts and cheese and cream and a little full-fat yogurt, and it's not hard. You don't have to gain that 15 pounds, and you can actually use this as a time to really discover what foods make you feel good. One more thing about the discovery of yourself. Here's something I noticed. I have always been a person who cares very much about how I'm in front of the public eye a lot. How I dress is important to me, how I look on TV. And so I have cultivated the habit kind of like dressing for others or dressing for the occasion, or like and I forgot what I like to wear. I forgot what I feel comfortable in, because it's never a consideration when I dress. It's like, what I did the first few days of solitude was like, what do I want to wear today? What do I feel good in? And sometimes I wear my best clothes around the house. No one's ever going to see me. See how it makes me feel. And sometimes I wear something completely different to see how I feel in it. I would never have had the time to figure that out, or to even go down that rabbit hole and explore that if I wasn't stuck in this. So you can kind of learn a lot about who you are apart from people, because you're not surrounded by people all the time. And a lot of us don't know who we are when we're not surrounded by people. So here, the universe has given you an opportunity. Take it.
Yeah. Yep. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed our time. And the link is also in the event, I believe the caption at the top for everyone to join. Someone else dropped it in the comments. Thank you. And I look forward to speaking with you again.
I would love to. And good luck with everything you're doing with the Mentors channel. I did not know about the Mentors channel before you guys contacted me. And I'm so impressed with what you're doing. I think it's great. Have me back. I'll be there.
Thank you. We have some really exciting things coming up that we can't wait to share with our audience. These interviews are really just a service offering as we transition into something even greater in the coming months. And we're really excited. So thank you. We'll be sure to let you know. All right.
Take care.
Thanks, Dr. Bowden. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.